How much does it cost you to generate that sale? What is the cost of logistics? What is the cost of the product?
Right. So to break it down completely, if 100 rupees is the product, 50% is, I'll do a blended average approximately, right? 50% is my gross margin, right? So 50% goes into the making of the product. In that 50%, maybe about 25% is your cost of your packaging, 10% is the cost of the liquid, and 15% would be your direct expenses, your factory overheads, labor, utilities, and all of that stuff. So that covers your 50%. In the remaining gross margins, maybe 15% goes into marketing, 10% goes into sales and
Marketing
distribution
means what?
expenses,
Like the brand building activities.
brand building activities, working with influencers, events, social media, all of that stuff, right? Visibility is about 15%. 10% goes into sales and distribution expenses, which is managing your team, your distributors, all of that stuff. And then you're sort of left with another 25%. 10% goes into your rest of your overheads, your finance cost, all of that. And I think that pretty much 10 to 15%, and that leaves you with maybe, like, at the moment for us, maybe a 5%, 5 to 10% margin for us at the moment. 5%.
How much is logistics in this?
Logistics is, I've included in the sales and distribution cost of about
Okay.
10%. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not that high than the sales and distribution cost. Okay.
Yeah,
Understood.
because see,
Okay.
in the reason being is because today we are pretty much selling we sell our beers in bulk, right? So each we send out truckloads of 1,500 cases at a time. So today that helps you substantially bring down your S&D cost, right? Today, in fact, it's higher for us in the non-alcoholic space because our distribution is more spread about and scattered, right? Like, for example, like today. When I'm shipping out product for the UP market, right? I send out one big truck at a time, and then it gets sub-distributed by the distributors, right? So there is more distribution. I mean, there's more logistics cost that is already layered into the distributor's cost. But me directly, I'm not spending as much more. But in Boorecha, because we're not sending it to a stockist and then having it spread, we're doing it ourselves. It's much higher than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your margin for Boorecha? Like for the beer category, it's 5 to 10%, which is left
Yeah.
with you. What is the comparable number for
So,
Boorecha?
so I did like sort of a blended average for you in the whole thing. But if I were to give you a breakup between the two, my beer has a gross margin of about 40%, whereas my non-alcoholic has a gross margin of almost 70%. Right. So there's a huge sort of difference. Non-alcoholic has a lot more gross margins because uh, making the liquid to make beer is a lot more expensive than the liquid to make non-alcoholic products. Right. So that's where the main sort of difference sort of comes about. And yeah, and then plus the process also, right? So the direct costs involved in making beer, we do almost 25 days of fermentation in tanks at temperature controlled tanks, which is usually maintained anywhere under 10 degrees to sometimes at 0 degrees for maturation. So that's where the costs sort of go up in beer making, essentially, hence lower margins. So beer industry is always known to be a low margin, high volume business, whereas non-alcoholic does not require that much volume to sort of become profitable.